I genuinely think the boys just made the most dangerous decision in the entire show. And no, it's not just because Frenchie died. Episode 7 may have quietly changed the ending of Season 5 forever, because for the first time in years, Homelander suddenly feels almost impossible to stop. And if you thought this episode was only about shock value, I think you missed what the writers were really doing here. Because Frenchie's death isn't just sad, it isn't even just tragic, it might actually be the moment that completely reshapes the final battle against Homelander. The boys just lost one of their smartest members. Kimiko lost a person who understood her better than anyone else, and the team may have lost the only man capable of building a weapon powerful enough to win this war. But at the same time, Episode 7 may have finally fixed one of Season 5's biggest criticisms. Before we break down why Frenchie had to die, whether his sacrifice was actually worth it, and why the finale suddenly feels way more dangerous, let's quickly recap what this episode really set up. For some fans, The Boys Season 5 has felt slower than expected. After a massive opening, the story shifted into smaller character conflicts, emotional arcs, and long-term planning instead of constant explosions. Rather than rushing toward Homelander, the season spent time showing how impossible defeating him had become. And honestly, Episode 7 finally explains why the slower pacing may have been necessary. Up until now, the boys' entire strategy revolved around one major idea: stop Homelander from becoming unstoppable long enough to use the soup virus. That virus was supposed to be the great equalizer, the thing that could finally bring down someone who basically functions like a god. But Episode 6 heavily suggested that plan might already be dead. After Soldier Boy helped Homelander gain resistance, or at least implied immunity, suddenly the virus didn't seem like the guaranteed answer anymore. And if Homelander can't be infected, then years of planning instantly become useless. That realization changed everything. Episode 7 responds to that problem by introducing a desperate new strategy: recreating Soldier Boy's energy blast. Unlike the virus, Soldier Boy's powers didn't just kill soups, they removed powers entirely. Suddenly, Frenchie and Kimiko weren't trying to destroy Homelander anymore. They were trying to make him human. And honestly, that idea is terrifying, because it quietly reveals how hopeless the situation has become. Nobody believes Homelander can simply be beaten in a fight anymore. Even Butcher, the man obsessed with revenge, seems to understand brute force isn't enough. That's why Frenchie and Butcher started exposing Kimiko to dangerous radiation in hopes her healing abilities might somehow evolve into something similar to Soldier Boy's blast. It was reckless, horrifying, and completely desperate, but it also revealed something important. The boys are out of options. That desperation becomes even clearer once Butcher, Hughie, Starlight, and leave to investigate Homelander's next move, accidentally leaving their headquarters vulnerable. And the moment the team split up, you could already feel disaster coming, because this show has taught us something over 5 seasons. Whenever characters start feeling hopeful, something horrible usually follows. Then Homelander arrives. The second he discovers Sister Sage is hiding inside the boys' base, the tension completely shifts. Suddenly, this isn't about planning anymore, it's about survival. Frenchie quickly hides Kimiko and Sage inside a zinc-lined boiler, since Homelander can't see through zinc. Smart move, probably the only move that makes sense. But here's the detail that makes Frenchie's final decision hit harder. He never really tries to save himself. That matters, because once he steps into the radiation chamber, it almost feels like he already understands where this is heading. There's no grand speech, no dramatic goodbye, no fake heroic moment designed for applause. Just acceptance. And honestly, I think that's what makes the scene so devastating. Frenchie knows exactly what activating that radiation means. He knows there's almost no chance he walks away from this, but he also understands something else. If Homelander finds Kimiko, she dies. So he makes a choice. Not for the mission, not for revenge, not for the world, for her. And that's what makes this death so emotionally brutal. Because for years, Frenchie and Kimiko have quietly been one of the emotional hearts of the boys. Messy, absolutely. Complicated, Definitely. Sometimes frustrating, sure, but deeply human. Both of them were broken people trying to survive their past. Frenchie carried guilt, addiction, violence, and regret. Kimiko carried trauma, loss, and isolation. Somehow, despite all the chaos surrounding them, they became each other's safe place. Which is why this episode feels cruel in the most intentional way possible. This season finally allowed Kimiko to speak, giving their relationship a completely new dynamic. After years of communicating with signs and expressions, they could finally talk. And right when it felt like maybe, just maybe, they had a future, the show takes Frenchie away. That timing feels deliberate, because The Boys loves painful irony. The moment hope appears, it gets ripped away. And when Kimiko finds him bleeding out after Homelander leaves, you can feel the emotional weight crushing the episode. No exaggerated speech, just grief. Raw grief. And honestly, I think The Boys needed this death. That sounds harsh, but from a storytelling perspective, Frenchie dying before the finale may have been necessary. Let's be honest for a second. One criticism surrounding Season 5 has been the feeling that the core cast was too safe. Sure, important characters died, but audiences slowly started believing the original members of The Boys were basically untouchable. Butcher always survives. Hughie somehow escapes. Frenchie and Kimiko make it through impossible situations. finds a way. After enough seasons, viewers subconsciously stop worrying. Episode 7 destroys that comfort, because if Frenchie can die in the second to last episode, suddenly nobody feels protected anymore. And that changes how viewers experience the finale. Every conversation feels dangerous. Every goodbye feels suspicious. Every emotional moment suddenly feels like it could be the last. That tension matters, because finales only work when audiences genuinely fear loss. But there's another uncomfortable truth here. Frenchie's story may actually have reached its natural ending. Think about where he started. At the beginning of The Boys, Frenchie was chaotic, self-destructive, emotionally unstable, and haunted by terrible decisions. He constantly sabotaged himself and struggled to believe he deserved anything good. But over time, something changed. He started trying to be better. Not perfect, just better. And by Season 5, his purpose became incredibly clear. Protect Kimiko. That was the mission. That was the goal. And in the end, he dies doing exactly that. From a writing perspective, it feels tragically complete. But this raises a painful question the finale absolutely must answer. Was Frenchie's death even worth it? Seriously, what if Homelander still wins? What if the radiation changes nothing? What if all Frenchie really did was buy the team a few extra hours? Because if Homelander survives anyway, then this suddenly becomes one of the darkest moments in the show's history. A man sacrifices himself for the people he loves, and it still changes nothing. That possibility makes the finale way more emotionally dangerous. Now let's talk about something viewers are already debating. How Frenchie actually died, because the show leaves just enough ambiguity to spark theories. When Kimiko and Sage find him, Frenchie is bleeding badly from around his midsection. The obvious explanation is that Homelander simply attacked him before leaving, but some fans think there's something darker happening. After Frenchie insulted Homelander during their confrontation, some viewers believe Homelander intentionally injured him in a cruelly personal and humiliating way. And honestly, as disturbing as that sounds, it also feels completely in character for Homelander. Either way though, Frenchie's fate was probably sealed the moment he activated the radiation chamber. Even if Homelander hadn't injured him, the exposure itself likely would have killed him eventually. But here's where things get really interesting. Comic readers probably expected something completely different, because in the original comics, Homelander doesn't kill Frenchie. Butcher does. After Homelander is defeated, Butcher becomes consumed by paranoia and decides everyone with Compound V in their system must die, including his own allies. That eventually leads to Frenchie and Kimiko dying together after discovering explosives planted by Butcher. It's dark, really dark, but the show changing Frenchie's death could secretly reveal something huge about the ending. Because if Amazon wanted comic accuracy, they could have easily saved Frenchie for Butcher's betrayal. Instead, they moved the death here. That feels intentional, and it suggests the writers may be building toward a very different ending for Butcher altogether. Still, this is The Boys, so nobody should assume redemption is guaranteed. Morally speaking, this show loves making everyone ugly. Which brings us to the biggest question of all. What happens now? Without Frenchie, the boys are weaker in ways that go beyond emotion. He wasn't just comic relief. He wasn't just Kimiko's partner. He was their scientist, their inventor, their problem solver. He helped create the soup virus. He nearly figured out Soldier Boy's power replication. He constantly built impossible solutions when everyone else ran out of ideas. Now, he's gone. That leaves the team desperate. Sure, Sister Sage could potentially help due to her intelligence, but realistically, time is running out. Meaning the finale probably won't be about strategy anymore. It'll be about sacrifice. Kimiko will almost certainly want revenge. Hughie may finally stop trusting Butcher completely. Ryan could become the deciding factor. And if Maeve returns, suddenly the final battle gets a whole lot more interesting. But one thing feels obvious now. After Frenchie's death, there are no half measures left. This war ends in the finale, one way or another. And if the boys wanted audiences terrified going into the ending, Episode 7 absolutely succeeded. Because now, for the first time in years, nobody feels safe anymore.